I feel like I figured myself out, and there's nothing external that can happen to me that me up mentally, but physically, this is a different thing.
Like, being loud is dangerous. Sure, you can't hide in the forest if you're being loud, but like, you know, it's also helpful for people to know you and be on the top of their mind.
Yeah. So, welcome to the Infinite Creative Podcast. My name is Fitz, and I think this is my camera angle, and then we got my compadre, my buddy.
My name is Sean, and we are doing a nice low energy intro today. But welcome, everybody. We're back. It's been like a while, right? It's been like weeks since we've had this podcast.
I don't know. Like, usually we're really good with that, doing it on a weekly basis. And obviously, life happens, and yeah, life can be stressful sometimes. And you had your fair share. I had my fair share. And I kind of want to go back into the competition. So for everybody who was not watching, or it's not really a competition, but the grant, you know, it has benefits to follow the Infinite Creative Podcast and check out our episodes, because like you could win 20 grand. And I think like today's the first, and the deadline is over. Did you fill it out? Yeah,
I didn't do the grant for the Elevate Creatives Fund. That's what he's talking about. If you've watched one of our last episodes, if we were fancy, we would have a thumbnail appear here, but we're not that fancy. But in their last episode, we definitely talked about, you know, there's this fund, there was this grant going on, and I think they're starting to choose who's going to be the winners of that right now, probably as we speak. But yeah, it's been an interesting month, you know, to get into kind of our lives. You know, I think, you know, in everyone's life, there's always personal stuff that happens, right? That kind of interrupts the flow of stuff. The flow of business, the flow of creativity. And so I think we both have had that happen in July. And July is honestly a good month for that to happen. Anyone that does business knows that July is a pretty dead month anyway. So I guess if you're going to have everything fall into a crazy place, July is a good month for it.
I would say you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But let's talk a little bit about that, actually, shifting gears, because like, yeah, it's July and wedding season is over. So that means basically for me, less gigs, you know, where people are like scrambling, like I need another videographer, I need another photographer, I need a second shooter, basically. Mm-hmm. And this is over, you know, and now it's like, okay, how well is your business adjusted to the winter, the rough times?
Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of like this is the winter, right? Like back when the colonial people like came to Americas and they died off in that first winter. That's kind of July for like a freelancer. That's the first winter where we run out of food, and you know, but in that time it's all about like, what do you do, right? It's, you know, if things aren't coming in and you're just sitting there staring at your hands, things aren't going to work out so well. But you got to move and groove. You got to figure things out. And so I guess for you, what was the moving and grooving? You had time. What'd you do?
I had time. Well, I was kind of sick, so I'm basically like, I was like forced to just like chill out and relax, because like being a freelancer, being like self-employed, or like, you know, doing content for other people can be stressful, and put life on top of it, then it's like, oh, it's a nice sandwich of like pain. But no, it is fine. So I did a couple things. Like I did in the meantime when I was like sick, I'm like, okay, I got to do the stuff that I want to do. And there was like, hey, let's do some 3D modeling, some fun projects where I'm like, okay, I cannot really work, you know.
Super cool. People see that. Look, some of his fun 3D projects, super cool.
Yeah. So I did stuff like that, and then I'm like, okay, I need to take care of my body, and just like, okay, I cannot just go like a machine or a robot. I like doing that because like I feel like I figured myself out, and there's nothing external that can happen to me that fucks me up mentally. But physically, this is a different thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think both are a part of the same system. Sadly, if you don't take care of your mental health, then your physical health falls apart, and definitely the opposite too. If you don't take care of your physical health and everything falls apart, it definitely affects your mental health. So, sadly, you have to have both. You can't just do one or the other. But I'm glad you're back. It's good that you like you kept being creative though. You kept creating stuff, and so that's what's important. I think if you don't keep doing that, then I think you can lose your way in the middle of the craziness.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I had a crazy month too. I mean, you know, I had some family emergencies, had to leave the state, all these things. You know, there was multiple weeks of things kind of hitting a dead space in my world. But you know, in all of it though, I think for me it was just kind of realizing that at the end of it, you could restart. Like you can always restart. The tomorrow is always a new day. So like if you lose complete momentum and you get to 0 miles per hour, you can always just start at the end of this. Like give yourself time. So for me, in the middle of the crazy stuff, and if anyone's ever been through like a family issue or something that's like an ongoing thing in the hospital, you know, they kind of realize that like it's like an hour to hour thing, and there's a point where you just have to let go of everything else. You need to let go of the work and the job and the salary and the leads and all of the stuff. You just have to kind of like, whatever, we got to just like focus on this, and that will be there when I'm done with it. And yeah, when you're done, there's going to be less leads, there's going to be less money. And so now we're like, I'm dealing with that stress now of like coming back to reality and being like, oh, okay, yeah, there's a lot going on. And July literally didn't make me any revenue. So now we're in that kind of space. So it is stressful, but it's okay. It's kind of just reminding myself like, whatever, just restart. You can always just restart.
Yeah. With that being said, like I realized when I was like under the weather and like I was like sick for like 2-3 weeks, and I'm just like not feeling well, not doing stuff. Still had work because like I can work from home, like being on the computer, send out those edits, and just do it whenever I feel like it. What is nice,
right?
When you work from home and nobody really cares when you edit as long as it's getting done at the right time. Yeah. But I realized like marketing is like really important, and I'm like, we all know marketing is important. We all know we should advertise, we should do all the above. So it's like the moment, obviously, but it's like different when you actually think about it, and it's like, okay, it's actually as simple as like making noise, like marketing. All it is like you're in the jungle, you're just like making noise, and it's like, oh, I hear noise back there, so that person is still around doing their thing, and it doesn't even need to be good, because like it's actually worse when you don't hear noise at all and you don't think about the person, and your competitor made some noise and we think about the competitor, and now it's like they didn't really do a good job, but they still got the lead because somebody at the time needed something and they only heard the bad noise, but they heard it, and I'm like, I just need to make more noise, and that can be actually really low effort, because like how often do we go on those like Twitter, X, and like YouTube comment section, for example, even just like commenting on somebody else's stuff or giving advice in a forum, all that is noise, and we need to make noise to be heard.
Yeah, I really think that's powerful what you said. So, with the comments, I've been actually thinking about that the last few days, because they've even been referenced in podcasts a lot, where they talk about, I was reading the comments the other day, or I was reading the comments on another podcast, and it's funny that people are actually referencing comments, I feel like, more and more, and like, there's even that famous comment you'll always see where someone's like, oh, I saw the beginning, or I saw the title, and I had to come straight to the comments. Like, people are even referencing that, like, the comments are sometimes better than the content, which I think is really interesting, because I think why is it better than the content? I think it's that connection. You feel like you're hearing the people, you're connecting with people. And so it's like, so in my mind, I'm someone that like hasn't really been someone that comments on things, right? Like if I watch a Joe Rogan video, I don't feel like I need to go into the comments and give my opinion, because first off, it's a little dangerous. Right now, someone knows my name. Now I've put an opinion. Now people can take shots at me. Two, I just never felt there was a benefit, right? I was always just like, who cares if I make a comment? Like it doesn't, like, it's not going to lead to anything positive. It's just me putting myself out there, which is just a risk. So I almost looked at people like that left comments as like, what are you doing? Like, you're like, you're
giving away your position.
You're giving away your position, and you're wasting your time. But now I'm starting to see that, like, but you're right. Like, being loud is dangerous. Sure, you can't hide in the forest if you're being loud, but like, it's also helpful for people to know you and be on the top of their mind.
Yeah, so that's like a funny part, because like I meant less like the commenting, but you're right. People do that, and you make yourself a name, and it's like the louder you are, the more you make yourself a name, and that is very beneficial, because like you will live rent free in somebody's head if you upset them. And it's like, we all have those little wars going on in the comment section. It's like, oh, now somebody just said something I do not agree, and I'm arguing. Right. And the classic is like, you write something and then you rewrite it, and then you write it and you rewrite it, and there goes like 2 hours sometimes, like if you're not careful. So obviously, like, should you be loud? I think, yes, you should be. Should you be so controversial that you rewrite it 3 times? No.
Unless it's your brand, and it probably, and if it is your brand, good for you. But like, that's, I think, a cautionary tale of that is like, just don't be that guy that does the controversial thing because you think it's going to get you more views and things like that. I've seen that happen a few times, even in the design world, where they're going to do something that's out of left field, that's controversial. They're doing that video. Maybe it gets them a lot of views for that, but then I've seen like like after that they lose the audience because they lose the cohesiveness, I guess, which is really interesting. So I think it's like be controversial, but make it make sense to your audience. You're still catering it to an audience, and I think that's something you hear at probably all of the content creator things too, is like your audience is key. Like you have to really understand your audience. And so I think if your audience will like that controversy, right? So if like for us, like if there's a controversy in the creative world, right? Something that we need to talk about, like one thing we could talk about is DeSantis, like while we were out on a break, DeSantis in Florida took all of the grants and funding away for the creative arts, which is a big thing, you know. So there's galleries even here in St. Pete that weren't able to be open for First Friday, or Second Saturday, I should say, because you need money to keep the lights on. You need money for the staff. You need money for the insurance. And so they weren't able to do it because there's no grant money now. So it's like, so that's a controversial thing, but it's in our lane. It's not like I'm talking about, the Drake and Kendrick Lamar thing, which, congrats Kendrick Lamar on winning that clearly. But anyway, moving on, like there's like these controversies that I think we can handle, but don't do it for the quick hit, I think.
I personally like... You're right, but it's all about like how do you package it, because like you can talk about anything if you put it in the right light. And like you put it in the right light, with the DeSantis thing, and I'm like, okay, this is fine to talk about. Usually politics in general, very bad thing to talk about. We missed the whole drama of like, getting clipped, on the ear and whatever.
Yeah, something about ears and I don't know. I gotta follow the news. I don't really know what that was about, but something about covering your ears with I don't know what it is.
Yeah, but basically like there's things you don't want to talk about. And another thing that most people don't really know about social media is like if you have strong opinions or you have dead bodies and you want to hide it, the worst thing you can do is like making a case against something, because then you draw more attention to it.
100%.
So it's like the best thing you can do if you want to be quiet about something and people are not talking about it, you don't talk at all, anything related to it. So competition, you don't mention their name, and then they don't get the advertising. But if you say like that person did so bad with this, now people are actively looking for it, and then they want to form their own opinion. And even like if they did a bad job or a good job, does not matter. There's a 50-50 chance that they will agree or disagree. And it could be completely conspiracy, could be completely right or wrong, does not matter. There's enough people out there who will believe anything.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I almost think of it as there's like almost like 3 different levels of this, right? So like the first level is that you talk about your competition in a bad way. You're just like, oh yeah, they suck, you don't need them. But then that makes the person think about like, well, why are you saying that? Are you gonna, so that's really not the best way to go, right? Because then yet, like you just said, then the competition's at the top of their mind, and they're already like, it's a negative thing. You're so that's like stage 1. Then stage 2 is like what you said, just don't even bring up the client. Like even if the competition says something about you, you're just like, oh okay, and you just like kind of move on. That's level 2. But then the level 3 of true enlightenment is when you're like, you actually recommend your competition. And you've done this before, I think, where like
only for the shitty people though.
But you recommend your if it's kind of inevitable, and I've done this before, where I've actually he's great. He'll do great. He'll do a great job for you, and it's actually surprising because then they actually do come back to you because somehow now you have ownership of their awesomeness. You're the one that recommended their awesomeness. So even their whole being in their brain, in your client's brain, is because of you. Like, so it's like, oh well, yeah, you're good, but Sean's the one that like recommended you, and so
I mean, like yes and no, and all the above, because like yes, it is always powerful to recommend people, because like first off, like client sees like you have the best interest, like, and sometimes it can be painful when you're like, oh, you have to acknowledge like your competition has better branding, better deliveries, better whatever. But as long as you have the best interest of the client, they will acknowledge that like, hey, he recommended me something that was really worth it. And as long as it has a good impact, it's really powerful. But if it doesn't, then it's like becomes a problem. It's like kind of like, when you're in a job and you refer a guy who's like, hey, yeah, can you hire this guy? He's a good worker. And then he's completely shitting the bed.
Yeah. And I think, it just comes back to like, we're people in a community that like, if you go to your mechanic and your mechanic's like, hey, I could fix this, but there's a guy down the road that does transmissions. You probably should go to him. This is his name. You appreciate that. And it creates this bond. It's not like the first mechanic you'll never go to again. Like it creates this trust where you're like, wow, he just like, so that exists in our world too. We have to think of ourselves as like parts of a community. I think, especially in the creative world, we get so stuck in ourselves. We just get so damn selfish. We're just like, I'm cool. I'm only going to have the cool clients. And I think it's like, no, you got to think you're a part of the community. You're trying to serve the community. And if people start to believe that, that's the golden moment when everyone's like, no, Sean is a great guy that just like does good branding and websites for people in the community. Like that's his role. And I love him for that. Like, so if people have that in their mind, it's like, even if someone came out of the door and was like, yeah, well, Sean's not that great. I'm way better. I'll do it cheaper. They're like, yeah, but you're not part of the community. You just said 10 times in a row when you were talking about your services. Like Sean doesn't do that. Yeah. So people really do. They recognize that kind of humbleness, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like now we kind of got like drifted into like the competition kind of. It's kind of interesting. Like, how do you feel about like the year competition? Because we're living in a time where it's like, okay, there's $30 websites, there's XYZ out there, and I'm in the same boat where everybody's can do their own videos, and I actually tell some people like, you should do your own videos because like you can spend more time and make it really nice, where I as a business have to make kind of cookie cutter but more effective and more volume, if that makes sense. At least in some aspects, that's my approach.
Well, yeah. I mean, in web design land, that's existed a lot. I mean, I can't tell you how many web design companies, you go to their page and you look at their portfolio, and all the websites do look very similar. They are all the similar structure because frankly, that is what they're doing. And to be completely transparent with people, like I've never done that route. And honestly, there's been times where it didn't benefit me. Like I probably should have been more cookie cutter, like, and not that I'm reinventing the wheel completely, but like doing the custom kind of websites, while it's good, it's improving the world of websites, it can be really difficult to actually grow that business to a place that you want it. But like, to get to your point of like competition, right? Like we have all these competitors. Also, we have the democratization of these tools, right? Like we live in a time where I think you're kind of right, where people should make their own videos. And to a degree, I would even argue people should at least understand websites, at least on a basic level. They should try to like play with a website, or if they have a goal or a dream, they should at least do a Squarespace or something and make sure to like get that dream moving and at least understand the verbiage of what a website is.
Yeah.
I think we live in this time though where like it can be very dangerous for a lot of people though when they start to believe that like, oh, I can do it myself. I can do everything myself and I don't need to pay people this stuff. And what's really hard right now that I still don't know how to really deal with is that there's times where we as people are not competing against other people, but we're competing against tools. And tools are like super cheap, like, right? Like Squarespace is like $20 a month, $25 a month.
Yeah. Can
I charge that? Like, can I only charge like, no. So even like when I have clients that like it's a Squarespace, my part of it could be $1,500, $2,000. And then the Squarespace part for the first year is maybe $300. And so it's like, and that's okay when people understand that like, people have a lot more value than a tool. But the thing that's scary to me, and I don't know if you've seen this in your world, is sometimes they're like, well, it's fits versus the tool that's $20 a month. And that's where it gets really scary, because then it's like if there's that devalue of the human, then there's no way we can compete. There's just no way. I mean, there's almost a point where I would just be like, then I won't be a web designer. Like if the world literally will not just tell me that's the value and they won't appreciate it, then I'm like, then my time's gone. Then it's time to move on to something else. The machines have taken this over, apparently.
This is actually a really good segue. So first off, a link below for Opus affiliate. So, but this is now like not a shout out to my competition, but it's like a tool. You post one video, you get 30 reels, and it's a banger. Like you get like 30 reels. Some of them are trash. Like sometimes 90% of them are trash. Sometimes one of them is actually really good, and you post it. It's like a couple thousand views. Costs like $30 or $20, depending on what package. Whatever. I have that knowledge. I have the subscription. I'm not using it for several reasons, because like obviously I could see that as competition, and some people, especially my competition, is like, oh, I charge only $600. You get unlimited edits, and they are using the tool. And it's like, oh, so they upmark that, but you don't have customization. It's low quality and yada yada yada. It's not perfect. And the thing that we can do as a business owner is basically you have control. You know, you can tell me like, this is not good. I don't like this, you know, and I change it. And you cannot do that with the tool. The tool has limits and guidelines and whatever. And I'm competing with the tool, the people, and, you know, then it comes back to like the branding and the marketing and being like a nice person and actually saying like, hey, I have all the tools. I can do whatever you want. But yeah, on the flip side, it's also like, should you enable your competition to do the same thing? You know, like, because in my world, I can hold footage technically hostage, you know, depending on like, hey, let's say I film with a client, and that sounds not terrible, but if in the contract it says, and in the deliverable it says, I film, edit, and you get the edits, you know, and it's the discounted rate, then you just get the edited version, but you don't get the raw footage, you know, and I can use the raw footage for future projects. But if the client now wants like, hey, this guy has like a nice deal, so this actually happened, is like, I have a nice deal, you get unlimited editing, you know, just give me footage and I give you unlimited video. So why should I enable now my competition with the footage that's not being paid for, you know? So now I'm like, I could be like the best interest for the client and being like, hey, here it is, but now they get like the directing, the filming, all that stuff for free, and nobody paid for it. And I'm like, what? So there's a way how you can like handicap stuff in a way that should be fair, or is it fair for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, so that's tricky. The whole holding stuff hostage, making it difficult for people to leave you, that can get really murky. You know, web design world, I'm really happy to say that I have a very open door policy. I don't hold things hostage because I found it just gets too complex and too complicated once they're like, no, we paid for that. What are you doing? And things can get real murky and weird the second you do that. So, and I'm sure you're the same way. When things get ugly, you're like, here's it all. Like, I don't want to deal with it. Like, you know, if you're going to get to this crazy place, I don't have time to deal with you. Like, just take it. I don't care. But like, you're right though. Like, there is this kind of like, I think I've done this before too, where I give too much. I give them like multiple possibilities, for example, and then I see that they're rolling out those possibilities over time with other people. I've had that actually happen. Like, I'm giving you 4 ideas, you choose one, but then you're showing the 3 other proofs to some other future guy who just recreates it. So I just gave you 4 ideas for the price of 1. Yeah. And so that can be really tricky, right? You know, we just live in a weird time where we're competing almost sometimes with the client themselves, and sometimes some of the tools don't help us, right? Like when Adobe is like saying like, just use AI, you don't need a designer, or when like you're like in Canva, you know, is not telling you to use a designer. It's the whole thing is about like, don't hire designers, do it yourself. You know, there's these tools are not directly going against us, but they're definitely indirectly going against us, and they're taking out the gatekeepers, which is good, like, right? Because some of us could be gatekeepers. We could definitely, if we didn't have the technology, we could be like, if we didn't have like your Canvas and your Adobes and your AI and all these things, we could be gatekeepers. I could be like, no, if you want a good video, you got to get to the guy that has 10 grand of equipment and has all this experience. And if not, then you don't get a video. But so it's good that there's no gatekeeping. That's good. But what's bad, like you said, is that like there's shots fired from every angle sometimes. And it's hard for us to really know how to be, right?
Yeah, so I feel like this is actually kind of interesting because like I understand both sides, you know, and obviously in some degrees I took the sides of like, I used the bad word, holding the footage hostage, you know. Some people say it in a bad word, but if you say, and you go to McDonald's and you want a chicken burger and you buy 5 chicken burgers and they're discounted for $1, you know, and you don't get the recipe, you don't get the raw chicken, you don't get all that stuff, they withhold that from you. You cannot go to like Wendy's and like, hey, here's the materials from McDonald's.
Right. You don't get to make the burger yourself. You don't
yeah. So I'm like, I see it from that aspect. And I think like Adobe and all those other companies, they're actually doing the same thing. They're like, oh, you sign a contract with us. We own all the rights, the techniques that you're doing. Everything is being recorded, and they use that to train AI right now, and it's messed up.
That's
you know,
messed up. Yeah.
But whoever has the most assets right now owns the place in a way. You know, so they hold the assets and they give you the deliveries that you have been paid for, and whoever markets the deliverables and the assets the best way has the next step. So it's like it's messed up. So if you give everything away, people will take advantage of you.
Yeah. Well, and it's really interesting because like, even as I like, you know, I have my own painting style, for example, and like, and it's cool, but it's like, even as I look at it, I'm like, people can definitely just run with this with brandings and things like that. So like style itself, aesthetic itself, I think used to be a lot safer than it is now. Like once you do an idea, let's say you come up with this creative thing that nobody's ever thought of, once you put it out there, it's just going to be taken, and it's going to be, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's going to be remixed really quickly.
Yeah.
Like I think before, back in the 1920s, I could have something come out and someone immediately wouldn't just copy me. It would at least take some time maybe, but like now it just feels like you put something out there, 10 guys are already playing with it in this way and that way, and this is already happening, and the client's already taking it over here to this guy, and and just the fact that I could take a screenshot of something and I could run it through DALL-E and see what it does. Like, people can take the things you do. Like, I'm not happy with the thing that Fitz did, so now I'm going to run his thing through AI, and it's cool. I like how AI messed with it.
Yeah. Yeah, with that being said, like, obviously this can be like misspun, because there's a bunch of people who are like, okay, I can do whatever I do as long as I paid for it, and there's the law,
right?
There's like what people believe and what people think is fair, and everybody has like a different definition of fair.
Yeah, well, that's why contracts are important, honestly. Like, that's why you really should use contracts. And I still talk to people that are like, nah, I don't know, man, it's just too much of a pain in the butt. And I get it if it's not a lot of money, and I definitely agree, but like, don't do it for like a small amount of money. But contracts, you should definitely get used to it, because that's one of the parts of the contract, is that you have to, before you start the work, be like, I'm not giving you the files, I'm not giving you the recipe. Like, that's, if you have a problem with that, let's have that problem now, not when I'm giving you proofs.
Well, the funny part is, though, the cheaper the project is, the less you own. So that's why Facebook is free. You don't own the data. You don't own anything of it.
Right.
So they just want you, sign up for free. We give you a bunch of stuff, but we also take a bunch of stuff. Right. And you don't know. But the contract for free and cheap stuff is worse than you pay top dollar. And that's why I'm like, you should pay top dollar for certain services. If you spend more than $1,000 with me, you get access to a lot of things, versus like, oh, it's just,
right.
A $300 or $500 project where it's like, oh yeah, I added 1 or 2 videos for you, or maybe 5, making reels, whatever, on scale. And it's like, but yeah, do you get the raw footage? No, because it's a cheap project, and you could go to the competition. Now you use my viral directing against me, for example, when I'm like directing you what to say, how to say it, and now they're getting the results, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. Yeah, you got to be very careful about your own value too. I think it's all about like you train people how to treat you. I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but it's funny how it pops up in my life time and time again, where that in those first interactions with the client, you really need to kind of, and this doesn't need to be an aggressive thing. It can be a nice thing, but you do have to set the like, I'm the consultant. You need something solved. I'm here to solve it. And there's been a couple times in my career, and I'm getting to one here soon. I'm not going to name names, but there's like, a client where very soon it's going to be like, like if you're not going to listen to me as a consultant, then you don't need me, and I should probably remove myself, right? Yeah. Like, because there's a point in this like dance that like you need me and I need you. But if there's a point where I don't think I need you, it's the same thing too. Like, I should probably go. Like, so that's one of the things, is like, if you make that really clear that like, I'm here to help you, and I have all of this stuff, and if anything, I just have time. Like, we don't all have time. That's the one thing too. I especially young business owners just don't get, is that like, you can't do it all because of time. Like, it's not that you're dumb and you can't learn new things, and that there's not Google and there's not AI. We all know this, but it's time. Like, do you really want to spend all night making your website? Do you really want to like figure out the whole videography thing, come out of the video, and then have someone like Fitz be like, you didn't even do enough keywords when you posted it, so everything you did was for nothing. Yeah. It's just like building, right? It's like, am I going to do my own electrical work? Probably not, because not that I couldn't learn it, not that like, but it's first off, it's really dangerous for me to do my own electrical work. But second off, it's going to take freaking forever. Where an electrician will come out, get it done in an hour. It would take me like a week to get it done, and it'd be a lot of like. Yeah. And so yet again, it's like, I have to explain this to people. This has nothing to do with like, can you do it or you can't do it? Like, could Fitz become like a world-renowned logo designer? Sure. Could I become an amazing videographer? Sure. But we don't have the time to do that. You have to focus on the things you want to do.
That goes even so much deeper, because like, now you actually also have to say, especially in social media, is like, you actually can do it better than me. Like, there's people doing creative videos, and they're just like, okay, I'm on this, let's say I'm a carpenter and I'm like filming different angles, doing certain things. Yeah. Like, they could do it better because they have more time, and they can be a perfectionist, and they do the before and after, and I'm like, I cannot come out for the before and after, and I cannot come out for the in between.
Yeah, because they're there already. They're there. Yeah.
They're there. They have the time. They have XYZ. and they can be a perfectionist and they can do that. And there's ways where like you become the marketer and you need to be the marketer and you need to be the videographer and you need to do XYZ because it just makes more sense. You cannot hire a camera crew for 24/7 for, you know, a month or two. And then you need to do all those things, but there's still like a place where I'm like fitting in. Like, let's say you upload it to the cloud. Now you have an editor. You do your creative version how you want it. You can be the perfectionist, but hey, you want to do more volume. You want to do ads. You want to run a bigger scale versus like, hey, you only have 2 hours, you know, and do it your way.
Right. And so, like, you know, one thing that I would suggest doing that I think you do to a degree, I don't know if you quite market it like this or have a separate marketing for this, but, you know, and this is something that I'm just giving advice on the podcast, so anyone listening could run with it way more than I do, because I don't run with this advice. But, you know, there's something to be said. You have business coaches, right? Could we have creative coaches, right? Yeah. Because that almost is part of it, right? Like, you have this carpenter, he's like, Fitz, I don't have thousands of dollars to like pay you every month to do stuff, but I may have $500 for you to take a couple hours, 2-3 hours of your time, and let's just do an intensive workshop of you. No. You teach me how to do it. You teach me how to do the camera angles. You teach me about the posting. And I think you've done that. You've done that with some people where you've actually taught them. You don't just do it for them. You bring them into the process. Yeah. You tell them, I'm using these tools. I'm doing this. And I think there's a lot of value to that because, you know, then you tell that person. So let's say, yeah, you have that carpenter, like you said, and you teach him. He pays you $500 for a few hours, and you really give him out everything, the list, all the secrets. But then at the end of it, what you tell him is like, now, once this does well, and you have a ton of projects, and you have the budget, then call me. And then I'll help you elevate it to an even other level. And I think that's important. That's the important piece, because in their mind, they should be like, you're right, because if I get all these clients, I have all these houses, I have to get employees, I have to do all these things, I'm going to want to hand it off to you. And by then, like, it's going to be such a tiny percentage of my revenue, it won't even matter then.
Yeah. I mean, like, so on a real note, I actually did that with a client. He paid me like a minimal amount for like, hey, teaching and a little bit of editing, you know, and it was a fair deal. I really digged it, you know, and I'm like, okay, I teach you how to say hooks. I'll teach you how to do XYZ, and you can use the material for like marketing yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like an older guy, so he's not really good with social media, but hey, you got a question, I'll help you, I answer, and basically give you a head start. And he become good. So he's like, now his first video did like, I think like 10K. I'm like, damn, you know, you did a good hook, you filmed the right things, but once in a while it's still like, okay, now it's like 600 views on a video because he's talking about the wrong thing, but he wants to, and you know, like, we all have like a style and flavor, but you become really powerful by learning and paying for services. And I did not realize that, because there's people, because we talked about those business coaches. I know a personal trainer who hired me to do the website. He has a business coach, and I'm like, the business coach told him, hey, you need a website, you need this, you need that. And I'm like, he came to me, and I'm like, he liked my service, whatever. And I'm just like, damn, you're doing all the right moves. I'm like, where do you got the budget from to do all those right moves? And it's like somebody else is pulling the string, telling him, hey, do XYZ. And I'm like, why do I'm not doing that? That's
100%. I've asked myself the same question of why don't I get a business coach, you know? And I guess I've just never found that the funds were there. But you know, it's 100% true. It's like, I love business coaches because you know what they do? They make their client less ignorant. And that's really like their job, is to be like, there's all these things you don't even know about. And it's my job to like let you know that these exist. And so yet again, like, could we be creative coaches? And I think that maybe is a thing, because you have these micro businesses where they don't have the funds to help, and we try to help them. And it's either it's the worst thing when you have to create a video, for example, for a client, and they're gonna be like, cool, this video needs to make me money, and you're like, no, it's not. This video won't make you money right now. You have to have a whole marketing strategy that then leads to money. It's not like I'm gonna do one amazing video for your first video ever, and you're just gonna have money coming out of that. Like, you can never make that promise. Just like I can't just build you a website and just promise that website's going to generate money if you're not doing anything else. If there's no marketing stream, if there's nothing, no one's going into the website, it's useless. It's a very good looking house in the middle of nowhere, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, like, with that being said, like, yes, you can tell them what to do with it and how to use it. And that's usually what I do when I pitch. I'm like, hey, if you need a portfolio video, to highlight to future clients, like, hey, I did this, but you need to show them. Right. If you don't show it, it's like, yeah, you got a video, but nobody knows about it. You got to show it. And that's obviously the advertising, I guess, or your campaign. But it's like, it's relative. There's many ways to use your work and how to show the value so that they use it correctly, because most people don't. They pay for something.
Right.
When I got a website now, what am I gonna do with it? Like we need to know what you do with that website. You need to know what to do with that video, how to use it, so that you see the value, because like it's only as valuable as it can be in a way.
Yeah. And with that being said, I think one of my favorite types of professionals to like work with, and they can be testy too, they can be hard to work with as well, is marketing experts. Recently I'm on a branding project that is going to be a pretty big deal here in St. Pete, probably at the beginning of next year, but where there's like this marketing lady that's involved, and it's just cool to have her on the calls. She's got a very intense kind of abrasive style that I think could scare people off, but she asks those hard questions, or she's not afraid to say like, no, that sucks. Nope, that's not the way. Nope. But her whole mind, and all of her decision making is like, well, our demographic is going to be, female oriented, so I do like that color palette, or this is going to be in these different touch points. And so it's just so good for us as a creative to have someone like that, because if not, then we're doing both sides. We're trying to overwork. We're like, well, we're going to have it framed in this way with this cool color palette, but then in the same way, that's going to solve your business goals here. And it's hard for us to wear both hats. And honestly, when we do, I think the client starts to lose faith in both, where he's just like, well, what are you, Fitz? Are you focusing on the camera work? Because now you're just telling me about business goals, and now you're talking about social media management. Now you're back here on video, and now you're back. So it's like, I'm trying to figure out, how do I get these partners in the room? How do I get, I almost want to start to reach out to these people and be like, how much is an hour of your time? Like, I don't even want you to be in the project. I just want you on that kickoff call. Like, I just want to pay you $100 to be in the kickoff call with me.
Yeah. I mean, like, I have a different approach to that, actually, because like, I'm like, do you use it for yourself? And if you use it for yourself, what are the results that you get? And if you don't have that, I don't really consider the people like capable, because like there's cinematographers who are like making very pretty videos, and I cannot compete with that at all. But they also like shitting the bed left and right with like, this is pretty but doesn't get views, and they don't make money from it. They only get money from like crowdfunding or different ways and sources where most people don't. But if I do video, if I talk about something, I need to use it for myself. And if I use it for myself, I know what the value is. If it's like selling something and you don't know how to use it, you cannot really sell it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's 100%. Well, and it's hard to sell marketing when you're not a marketer. It's hard for me to sell videos if I'm not a videographer. So I think that's part of it too, is we end up giving a lot of stuff away, and it does help our value. It does. To give people free things does help your value. But I think, especially with marketing, I'm definitely very guilty of giving away a lot of marketing advice and stuff away for free. And that may not be right. It's like a marketing person giving away logo design for free, or like, it's just like, so it's like, I'm starting to try to recognize that, because I think marketing is one of those funny lanes where a lot of people like to think of themselves as a marketing genius, when it's like, none of us really are. None of us have done a communications degree. None of us have really gone through any marketing boot camp. A lot of us don't even have the data to prove we're good at marketing. Like, how could I say I'm good at marketing when I'm not making six figures? I don't have like tons of like, so that is probably one of the worst things I think that's plaguing a lot of young people, is they think they're good marketers. And I don't think there's a lot of good marketers out there right now.
Yeah. Well, like I said, like it's going back to like, you need to show the proof. And then when you have the proof, then you can show them like what's possible in a way, like it's one thing to talk about Amazon affiliate, and then you don't have Amazon affiliate, because you don't know how it works. And it's like,
if you're not doing it, then how can you tell me about it?
Yeah. So, or you're making reviews and you don't know how to get a sponsor. It's like stuff 100%. Like that. And then it's like, if you know it, you can use it. If you don't know it, you basically just like kind of like, hey, yeah, you can talk about branding, but you don't have a brand. It's like,
right.
That's like the weird part, where it gets like really fishy. So I usually try to have like people like where I see how to use it and I believe it because they do it, versus like they talk about it and they know a lot, but they don't do it.
Well, and I want to really clarify that too, because I've actually run into some cases too where, for example, like a branding studio will actually hire another studio to brand them.
Yeah.
And you would think like, well, that means you're probably not very good at branding. But actually, no, that means that they drink the Kool-Aid, that they believe that you need to hire someone that can see inside the bottle, because there's no way you could see the label inside the bottle.
Yeah.
And so it's like, really, it's actually more of a testament of like, yeah, even we pay for someone to do our logo because you should.
But that's what I mean. Like, if you truly believe it, you pay for it and you do it. You know, it's like, if I believe in video, I will do video for myself, use it, and then I like can talk about it, you know?
And honestly, yeah. And someday, I hope I can start to get the budget where I start to say to myself, I was like, yeah, I'm hiring a web design agency to actually design my website. And I'm actually, because honestly,
you don't have time
as
doing it.
Weird as it is, it probably would be better than what I make, because it's just like it's too hard for you to make objective decisions when it's your own stuff. It just is. It's like there's no way you can disconnect fully from your own self and design stuff for yourself. Like that, you've struggled with that of like, how do I make my video? I don't know. It's like, it's easier to make Sean's video than it would be to make your own video.
Yeah, but my problem is not the video. My problem is the niche. Because like, if I have a niche, then I know what to do exactly and I will nail it. But I don't know what I like. So I'm like, I cannot focus on something. But for other people, it's so easy to see like, oh yeah, you should do XYZ. Why are you not doing XYZ?
Right.
But it's, so
hard for yourself to see. Yeah, exactly. Because you're just tainted because you know your own story. You know the things that have happened. You know what's worked and not worked. Sometimes it's best to have someone just comes in and is just like,
tell you what to do.
No, this is your audience. You're not doing what your audience wants. Let's do what your audience wants you to do.
Yeah. But that's the hardest part, letting go and like being like okay with like, oh yeah, somebody else is telling me I should do this, and do you trust them? And it's like really getting that mentor or the what did we say, the business coach, getting a business coach.
Getting a business coach, and maybe and thinking of yourselves as a creative coach, and so one thing that I'll touch on too. So I don't bring it a lot in the podcast is I'm a practicing Buddhist. I'm trying to get better and better at following kind of Buddhist tenets, and one thing that like I've been reading a lot of is the idea of that you should want everybody to do better than even you. And so if you come to everything in this way, this kind of super selfless way that like, even if you're my enemy, I want you to do better than me. Like, I literally want every single person in the interaction to benefit from me more than I benefit from them. And what's cool about that is it just takes you out of the equation. You're not always thinking about you're not good enough. You don't have enough money. Why did they reject you? Why aren't you getting the client? Why aren't you? You take all that out of the equation, and like it actually like opens you up a lot more to people like wanting to interact with you. It's like it opens up all these gates where like they're like, wow, you are so engaged and everyone doing better than you. Like, why would I not want you around me? And so that's the one thing that I would tell people out there too, is like, if you feel like there's this weird push and pull in your world of like clients aren't appreciating you or you're not getting the sales you think, it's like maybe that's the solution, is take yourself out of the equation. You should really just be about like making everyone have a better life and be better, and just like focus on that. And I think that in turn will make you happier in this.
I mean, like, so I agree with the message of like the whole Buddhism, and I think it's like very powerful. But in regards to business, for me, it's like it's very bad in a way, because like when you become so zen, you don't care, and Buddhism is about being like okay with whatever, in a way where it's like, oh yeah, you take my client, it's like you giving away, it's like, and you're fine, like people will be taking advantage of you, and it's like you only can give to so many people. But the more out of balance you are, the more driven you are, because you have things that fuel you, and it is self-destructive in a way, but you achieve things because of that. But Buddhism is like, oh no, I don't have to go to work because I'm fine.
Yes and no. I mean, I think I don't want anyone to get the misconception that Buddhism is like almost this easy type of like, I'm letting everything happen to me type of work. It's actually really focused work where I'm actually focusing on your benefit. And so like there's the story that they tell of like there's like this ball that's kind of in the water, right? And as you reach for that ball, you're reaching for it, you're pushing it away with the waves, right? But really, since you have mass in the water, if you just stay there, that ball will float and eventually come right to you. And so I like that idea of like, a lot of us feel like if I just push the message harder, if I just do more cold calls, if I just get in people's faces more, you actually are maybe pushing away clients. You may not even realize it. It's like a Chinese finger trap. It doesn't make sense. You would think, well, the harder I try, the more clients I get, and the less I try, the less clients. But actually, you'd be surprised. I think the more that you're chill, like when you go to a networking thing, we've all seen that guy that's super desperate, like super like getting everyone's face. I got to get a business card in everyone's hand. Oh, okay. And like he doesn't get anything from it because people get that energy. They're like, I don't want to be in business with you. Like you're freaking out already. Where there's the guy that's just like, hey, what do you do? Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I also do web design. Cool, man. Well, I'll send some stuff your way. And like that alone creates such a sense of confidence. So I don't want anyone out there to think that Buddhism just is kind of like, I'll let whatever happen to me, even if I get abused. It's like no, it's
can go easily south. Let's put it that way.
Well, yeah, and part of it is self-love too. Like that is part of Buddhism too. That like you do have to like love yourself so you can love others too. So that's a big part of it too. Is like you cannot let yourself go to ruin, because if you let yourself go to ruin, you can't help others. Yeah. So that's part of it too. So take care of yourself so you can take care of others.
Yeah, I feel like life is sometimes like a little bit of like balance of everything, because like everything can work and everything will work if you do it right, but you kind of have to commit to stuff and don't push too hard in a way. But not doing certain things will not help you. So it's like Buddhism is a powerful tool, but you also can abuse it and basically not use it right.
Well, yeah.
Same with any other religion. It's like they can be super powerful and helpful, or ways of thinking. I like Stoicism, for example. It's like it's very powerful, but it's also like if you become too Zen and trying to like
too stoic, then
it's like it doesn't really matter if I get the client. Why would I push that hard, and make six figures? Like you need those goals, and you only get those goals through this balance. That's what I kind of believe. It's like you need to be especially hurt to be in business to push that hard that you want to achieve XYZ versus like, oh, I'm making 40K, now I'm chilling,
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's different approaches for different people. I think the one thing I would challenge you is like you can't say nothing works until you tried it. So you really can't say that the Zen Buddhism work wouldn't work until you fully done it, till you fully have thrown it kind of into your thing. So I don't know. I really feel like we live in a world where everyone's so desperate that if you're the one guy that's not desperate, you'll actually probably do well. Yeah. Everyone's desperate for attention right now, and like super desperate. And so it's like, but then you get like, you get people like the Haktua girl who like, she doesn't try and now she's big. And so it's like this kind of, there is a whole thing of not trying and seeing that like the not trying sometimes leads to the good stuff, where if she was like, I'm trying to be a big deal.
Well, now she's doing, and now
but she's taking advantage of what's already happened. It's already exploded. Yeah. So now she's just trying to cash in on it, which I don't blame her. You should, because it's going to run out in a couple of years. No one's going to remember it. But
it looks so desperate, and I feel like people see that and they don't like it. And it's like now she's like going to club and making club promotions, and like, I don't care. It's like
100%. Yeah, but like that's how I think of this podcast, right? Is like, could we work way more hours on it? Sure. Could we make this an even better podcast? Sure. But it's like, if it doesn't feel true to us, if we're not enjoying it, if we feel like this is a chore and that it's like it sucks, then nothing will come of it. So it's like there's a part of this too, like to kind of wrap this up to where we started at the beginning is like, we took a month off, but in my mind, I'm like, that's okay, because I think sometimes you need to let things kind of settle. You need to let the air leave the room. I think we, especially with engagement and algorithms, we're taught like, go, do more, do it every day. Don't stop, keep doing it. And I think maybe that helps the algorithm, but it definitely doesn't hurt. It definitely hurts you, I think. And I see so much burnout, and I think it's that. I think it's even these, like, I've seen people that are big content creators, and even they're stepping off the gas now. There's so many examples of that where they're like, guys, I'm burning out. Like, I even have millions of subscribers and I'm burning out now. Yeah. So I think there is something of like, let it come to you too. Don't just keep pushing that ball away because you're so desperate to grab it. Sometimes just kind of like let your hands off and let it kind of come to you.
Yeah, I like that because like in life, everything is like very simplistic in a way, and like vibrations, that is the consistency. And I think like it's very powerful to have consistency, but talking about the pressure, that is like the actively grabbing something that, pressure can be good and bad at the same time. So 100%. Just like, be healthy.
Yeah, just be healthy. Well, this has been a very nice episode. We're going to be back in the saddle, hopefully doing more podcasts, having more guests. I think we have a part 2 coming up of one of our recent guests, so we'll have that coming up here in a little bit. Yeah. No promises from my editor over here, but yeah. So thanks everybody for tuning in for another awesome adventure, and we'll be back with more.
Yeah, have a good one, guys. So we did a thing.